Hey everybody, spoilers for Rogue One, a Star Wars story, and all things Star Wars probably. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Script Department. I'm John. I'm joined again today by Brad to discuss more Star Wars. We're talking about Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Before we get into that, do check out our website, thescriptdepartment.net, for all the latest projects we get up to. Hit us up on social media. The links are in the description. And if you haven't already, do subscribe to our podcast. Just search for The Script Department wherever you get your podcast for daily episodes like this, and also script readings with our global network of screenwriters as well. And give the YouTube channel a subscribe. Okay, Brad. So let's talk about Rogue One. I think this is going to be a very nerdy conversation, actually, because I really love this film. I think you like this film a lot as well.
It's one of my favorites. Yeah, I really, really love it.
Yeah. I thought we'd open up just kind of with our initial thoughts of the film. I won't go too much into the plot. The plot is basically a young woman is recruited by the rebellion to track down her father, I think, who sabotaged the Death Star, and they want to get the plans of figure out what it is that he's actually done, so they can figure out a way to destroy it. It is obviously, inspired by a paragraph from the opening crawl of A New Hope, and they made a whole kind of movie out of it in its own right. And it segues very nicely into A New Hope. Really, and it's almost like one half of a bigger story, really. The thing that I really love I really love this film. I was so giddy watching this in the movie theater because it was, when I was a kid, I used to have Star Wars playing on the VHS, and I'd have my little action figures in front of the TV, and I'd be kind of playing along to the movie, and it was almost like kind of a backdrop to what I was doing with my little toys. And watching Rogue One, I just wanted to go to the local toy store and just buy loads of Star Wars action figures again. It was the ships, and it was the characters, and it was the stormtroopers, and it was the different variety of stormtroopers, and it was just the Death Star is back, and it made me realize that the thing that I loved about Star Wars wasn't Luke Skywalker. It wasn't Han Solo, as much as those characters are amazing. It wasn't the Millennium Falcon even. It was those little ships in Cloud City or it was the walkers, on Endor, or it was the Death Star. It's all the backdrop of Star Wars that I think I've always been attracted to, the world itself rather than the heroes that are in it. And this movie's just chock full of all of that. Might not have the Cloud City stuff, but you get the point. So I totally nerded out for this film. What was your experience? What was your experience watching this?
I'm in a similar place. I absolutely love it, and I think the genius of it is that it's an immediate prequel. Like literally an immediate prequel to A New Hope, which is where everyone's love affair with Star Wars begins. So it does have the same feel. It's in the same time. If you get all nerdy and look at the timeline and see when it is, it's 0 years before the Battle of Yavin, because it could effectively be part of the same film. And they even slightly tweaked the canon a little bit just to sort of explain why that redundancy exists or how it became about in the Death Star. And it just, when I heard about it coming out, it was the first Star Wars story, I was like, this could be pretty special. And it feels like a lot more a grown-up version of Star Wars. There are a lot of deaths in it, and it's very bleak at times, but because the next film, they're going to blow that thing up. There's going to be a hero that blows that Death Star up. Even hints towards Bail Organa going, I'm going to go home and help my people. It's like, hey, that guy going to die. Like, it's not going to go well going home. You almost want to say, no, don't go. Like, stop. But it's, just the whole premise and concept of it and how it came about and the feel and the music and everything. It is almost like it's part of A New Hope. It is that good. I really loved it.
I'm really glad you said, actually, because I haven't watched that film since I saw it in the cinema. I got it on Blu-ray the day it came out, because I was like, I have to watch this again. And I got the Blu-ray because I was like, I gotta watch this as sharp as I can get, as I can watch it. This was before Disney Plus and all that, obviously. And and I watched it then, and I think that was the moment where it really felt like I think I just want to put on A New Hope now and just
Yes.
watch that.
Yeah.
And I didn't, but I haven't watched Rogue One since. And the reason why, I think maybe I'll watch it once more, but I think the reason why I don't watch it as often is because I feel compelled to watch this with A New Hope back to back.
Yeah.
I want that experience of watching it back to back, but I don't have the time to watch 4 hours. And that's a tiring movie, actually. Rogue One will wear you out, actually, by the
Yeah.
end, in the best way. It is a war film in the true sense.
It's a slug, yeah, it really is.
Yeah, and by the end, you're just like, whew, like we really got away with the skin of our teeth. Actually, I need a rest now. But the way it's done is you can literally just set up A New Hope now, cut out the crawl sequence, and just have the two back to back. And you know, it's so funny because the only other film I can think of that does that so brilliantly is Spielberg's The Post, which lines up so perfectly with All the President's Men. Apparently,
Yeah,
I think I don't know for sure, but I think I remember the last shot of The Post is a perfect replica of the first shot of All the President's Men.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
I knew it bumped up against it, but I didn't know that they'd literally shot it into it.
So the opening shot of All the President's Men, I believe, is the footage of the security guard going into the room in the Watergate Hotel, and then the end shot. Anyway, so the point is that this is Spielberg levels of connecting dots here, which I love. You know, so one thing I really wanted to kind of talk about was just how pure this is as in terms of Star Wars storytelling. It's the first film that had the Star Wars story kind of banner, but obviously it is a chapter in Star Wars, but it's literally like it doesn't need to be set in that galaxy even for it to be like quintessential Star Wars. Like everything about this story is quintessential Star Wars. If Star Wars is about family and it's about, the war coming to your doorstep and all that kind of stuff, this is that in a nutshell. The opening scene is a group of stormtroopers coming to their doorstep. It's these people living in isolation and the Empire coming to them and bringing them back into the fray. It's the rebellion recruiting this young woman to do her part. It's the yearning for reconciliation with the father. It's that kind of it's laying the groundwork for a victory and so on. It thematically on every level, this is pure Star Wars. And it's so funny because when I look at the new trilogy with Rey and all those other characters, I get my Star Wars fix from those movies for sure. I don't complain about them the way some people do, but I don't think they come close to the effectiveness of Rogue One as a Star Wars story, literally. Not just because it's a chapter in the Star Wars, but because if those are the ideas that Star Wars plays with, this film does it almost as good as the original trilogy does.
I think you're right. I mean, I think I think there is so much clarity. It's so black and white with good versus evil, heroes and villains in this story that you get that hit of A New Hope and Empire, and it's just so clear what the story is. That you were saying about the stormtroopers landing on the planet, you even get a hint of the ideology in like one sentence. He says, we were this close to bringing peace to the universe, and it's like that's like a right-wing ideology that you're going to bring peace by forcing everyone into doing the same thing, and it's clever and it's clear at the same time. And I think that's what was so good about A New Hope. I mean, the characters are very archetypal in A New Hope, but in the best kind of way. And they've used that. I mean, how evil does Darth Vader? How much more evil could Darth Vader be, or the Emperor? Like visually, tonally, the characterization that we experience for them, it's all evil. There are hints of they might be, or particularly with Anakin, of course, there might be good. There might be good in them still, but they are archetypes of evil villains, and they've used this again. I mean, is it Krennic?
Yeah, Orson Krennic.
Yeah, he is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It's like, oh wow, he's really evil and he's ambitious in all the wrong kind of ways, and he wants this to work. He thinks this is the Jeddah being blown up, and he's like, that's really beautiful. And you see he's having a real moment with it, and it's like, oh my god, this guy's so evil. Like they did such a good job with him.
And he's not even the most evil person there. Like he's not evil enough for them, because Tarkin is in there as well, which I loved. We'll talk about the deep fake and the CGI stuff later, but I really loved what they did for the Empire here. This kind of segues nicely into the kind of the next point I wanted to talk about, which is how this film elevates the kind of the components of A New Hope and so on. My biggest criticism with A New Hope, and it's not so much a criticism of George Lucas or anything like that, because I understand the way that film was made. You know, you're not making this film thinking this is going to be a $5 billion franchise that Disney's going to buy someday. You know, you're making this hoping you can get a second film out of it someday. And I don't think anybody could have ever imagined how big Star Wars was going to be. So, you know, it's not a criticism, but when you look at the wider Star Wars universe now, and you look at A New Hope's place in it, it's a pretty tame affair compared to kind of what we've now come to expect. And I think you do have to suspend your disbelief a little bit in terms of how weak the Empire come across in that story. You know, this is a case where they're able to infiltrate the town, Mos Eisley. You know, Obi-Wan just does his mind tricks and we're past the stormtroopers, no problem. They get captured on the Death Star. They escape the Death Star, you know, and I know there's that whole thing of we've let them escape. We've put the tracking device on it. A lot of good it did them. They got blown up in the end, you know. There was all this idea of, you know, how convenient there's this ventilation shaft that we can drop a bomb into and it works you know, all these kind of issues. The idea of it takes a handful of X-Wings to destroy this moon-sized battle station. You know, there's just so much about it that just feels a little rushed, a little too easy, a little too contrived. It's fine. You're making a movie in 1977 without any expectations, really, so that's okay. But this movie fixes all of that. This movie says that those few X-Wings that you see at the end of A New Hope, that was just the tail end of a battle that cost the lives of tens of thousands of people that we see in Rogue One. That clumsy design in the Death Star that, you know, everyone has kind of talked about to death for decades, that was intentional sabotage by a man whose wife was killed by the Empire. You know,
I love that they tidied that up. That up. It's like that's one of the things about A New Hope, where you're like, well, you just got to pop a couple of like amber beach balls in that hole, like that's it, and it blows it up, and it does, and it's made sense of that, and I loved that. The one thing I did want them to make sense of is why the Death Star's orbiting Yavin to blow the thing up. It's like, just blow the planet up. You'll take the moons out. Like, what are you doing? Just blow it up. Like no, you had to wait. But I think we had a long conversation one time about the how Star Wars was saved in the edit, and that they added that sequence in the edit. Like they added that, like, oh, we need more something happening. We can't just have them fly up and blow it up. It's going to be orbiting, and they made that out of, you know, raw ends of the film that they hadn't used, and, you know, graphics, simple graphics in the 70s, and it made it amazing. It made it absolutely amazing. But you're like, why don't they just blow it up? I don't understand. I wish they'd have tidied that up somehow, but maybe that is untidyable.
But one thing I loved as well was the idea that, you know, Alderaan is the first victim in terms of its full ability to destroy a planet, right? So how do you then show the destructive force of the Death Star in Rogue One without breaking that rule that Alderaan was the first destroyed planet? Well, they do it so brilliantly. They instill true terror. This thing appears, you can see it from the sky, you know, you can see it from the ground. You see this giant kind of a moon just suddenly appearing. I mean, that's a terrifying image. You never see that in A New Hope. You never see, you know, from Yavin, the view up in the sky of the Death Star. And that was used in the teaser, the very, very first teaser at Comic-Con or whatever. They showed Obi-Wan talk. They have this narration of Alec Guinness talking about the dark days of the Empire, or whatever, from New Hope,
Yeah.
and you see these TIE fighters flying through this kind of jungle setting, and then the camera pans up and you see the silhouette of the Death Star in the sky, um, like a moon appearing, and that is the image they went to again and again. And Gareth
Oh yeah.
Edwards, famous for Godzilla, brilliant use of scale in that film, showing giant things from a small perspective, from a low perspective. That's the guy you want making this movie. And I know there were issues in terms of creative differences at times, or bringing in another writer in to fix things and so on. But the idea of, like, they knew that if this is a monster movie, so to speak, and the monster is the Death Star, and it's this giant thing, we need to bring in the guy who can do that scale properly, because they never really captured that scale, I don't think, in A New Hope as much as they could have. Again, no criticism to it. It's 1977. I think it's amazing that they were able to make that film at all. But there's so much that you kind of yearn for as years go by, and this film really delivers that.
I think the scale discussion is really interesting, because the things that he does, particularly when Jeddah is destroyed, you're seeing it from above, like directly from above. You're seeing it from afar, and then you're seeing the explosion progress towards where they are, and then they have to fly out of it. And when they fly out of it, you get another shot of the entire thing, like almost shooting up towards the Death Star in the background. It's like, oh my god, this is massive. Just to see it happening on the ground level, when what's Forrest Whitaker's character called again?
Saw Gerrera.
Saw Gerrera. When you see, he's like, I'm not going to run anymore. He knows he's going to bite it, even though it's miles away. You're like, yeah, that's not going to stop. And it's massive. It is huge, and I think it does. I think to watch, as you said, the 4-hour New Hope with that before, it would feel slightly more terrifying when they're taking out Alderaan, like, because you've seen the damage it does on a surface level, but then to destroy the core of a planet and to blow it up would be even more terrifying. And I do wonder if they'll ever go back again to do they go back every few years to do the special effects. I wonder if they'll go back again with what they did with Rogue One and apply it to how they destroy Alderaan. Would you see something happen on the planet? Would you see it approaching from the surface of the planet? Are there more things they could do with it? I'm not suggesting they go back and change Star Wars again, because I just wonder if they're tempted to, now they've sewn this extra part of the story in.
I think they'll always be tempted to do something like that. I think but it's so funny that that's what Star Wars has become. And that's what I liked that they were addressing that. There are issues with those movies. People love those movies so much, but there are real kind of things that just don't hold up. And the Death Star being destroyed in A New Hope is a great thing if A New Hope is the only movie. But when you realize that there's a trilogy and there's 2 Death Stars, and by the time Force Awakens comes out, there's essentially 3 Death Stars that they've now blown up, kind of. It's getting a bit easy. It's a bit too easy. And what Rogue One shows us is that actually, for every Death Star they blow up, there's probably 10,000 people died in order for that to happen. And there's a lot of battles lost in order for this one battle to be won. And it does put the rebellion on the back foot entirely, which is something that really needed to be achieved, I think, because the rebellion are very good at what they do in the Star Wars trilogy. In this film, it shows them as this darker group of people. We'll talk about Andor more at the end, and kind of what we can expect from that show that's coming up. But I loved how this is a dodgy group of people.
Yeah,
this is we're doing some pretty shady things here, because we need to play at the Empire's game. And if we're that shady, then imagine how dark the Empire is. And I never watched Star Wars Rebels prior to Rogue One, So I never really got to see the kind of the intricacies of the Empire that I think that show does really well. But the Empire is a really scary idea in this movie. It's there's prisons, there's torture, uh, there's political backstabbing, military espionage, sabotage. There's kidnappings. There's murder. You didn't see any of that in the original trilogy. It was just, here's a scary monster guy who's the emperor, and creepy wizard guy. He's your bad guy. Therefore, the empire must be totally evil. And actually, no, this shows how bad it really is.
Yeah, I think they've hooked it into things that did happen, but they were just suggestions. So, like, the amount of the amount of guys commanding the Star Destroyers they go through, like, it strangles one. It's like, now you're in charge, and there is a political game being played when they're around the table telling Vader that his hokey religion's not going to, cut it, and then he strangles it. He does like strangling that guy. He's probably needs some psychological help somewhere along the line, but he didn't get it, and he's strangling people now with his force choke. But there was all of this, round table kind of military kind of hints, very, very short scenes. But in Rogue One, they've gone, right, let's explore a bit more of that about military ambition and, the struggles at the top. And the fact that Tarkin was like, wow, that thing blows up planets. I'm taking it. And you can see what happens with Tarkin, whereas we were just shown, oh, he's just a commander and general in charge of loads of stuff, and but you see him literally trying to steal the Death Star, the glory of building the Death Star from Krennic, and it's like, and he's pissed off, and and you get that, you just see. I know it's the deep fake isn't great on it, but you just see, evil Tarkin, like, yeah, I'm taking this, and you're like, oh wow, he's super evil.
Yeah, it is brilliant, and what I love is that's something I didn't expect at all from this film, was the idea of I would actually care about the day-to-day of what goes on in Tarkin's life and all that. Like, obviously you want to see more of that guy, but the idea of him, trying to stab Krennic in the back and push him out of favor with the Emperor. And there's even that line where you can go to the Emperor yourself and tell him if you're dissatisfied, and it's like, no, it's fine.
Okay, you can have it.
Yeah, you can have it. Which again, I love. It just builds up this terrifying idea. Yeah. I love the idea that the Emperor is out there somewhere doing something right now. What's he doing? There's so much left up to the imagination as well for a movie that is very much about filling in gaps in the first movie. And just that idea as well. If you go and watch A New Hope, there's in that round table where Vader's strangling everybody, and Tarkin is talking about how the regional governors will have control over whatever. There's an empty seat in that table, and apparently that's where they came up with the idea, or that was where the inspiration came up for Krennic. Was somebody's missing from this table. I go back and watch A New Hope and maybe confirm whether that's true. But I remember reading there's an empty seat at that table. Maybe it was meant to be for Tarkin, but I think Tarkin does sit down at his own seat. But there is an empty seat there next to all these people wearing white, kind of Krennic-like uniforms.
Mm. Oh, I wouldn't put it past them. You know for a fact they got the most uber geek nerd people they could at Lucasfilm. Went, sit down and watch A New Hope and just tell us what you think. How can we retcon a story into this? What? And they trawled that thing like with a fine-tooth comb. They were just trying to find any little thing. I bet there's more than that in there that we might never know of. We might not get that inside information. I mean, even now, only now there's footage coming surfacing from A New Hope, and it's been a couple of years now, but it's 30 years that we didn't see all of that stuff with Luke hanging out with his buddies, and Biggs, and go, good luck at the academy, buddy. I'll see you next year. And it's like, he didn't need that, so they got rid of it. But it's only just surfacing, and it's decades it's been hidden for in some locker somewhere.
But apparently, even in Mandalorian, there's there's at the end of season 1 of Mandalorian, you see a TIE fighter landing on the ground, and the wings kind of move a little bit so that it can land and he can get out. And it's this kind of thing where, oh, I never knew a TIE fighter could do that. But of course, it makes total sense. That's how it would land on the ground. And then Doug Chang, I think the concept artist for all the Star Wars movies, he shared on Instagram that this was all with, like, he had this idea for a TIE fighter years ago, and he just never found, there was never an opportunity to use it. I think I might be remembering wrong, but and there's that kind of way of bringing it in. I do think that that's the kind of that's the lovely thing about Star Wars, is that there's so much effort goes into the production design, goes into everything, that when they finally kind of start revealing their creative processes, whatever, you realize just how much thought is in each little idea. And I love that Krennic wears that uniform, because that's what the people at that table wore in A New Hope. And there's this empty seat missing, and there's some guy sitting at that table going, "Where's Orson?"
Yeah.
It's just like, I love it.
So yeah, I mean, it's because it's such a rich history, sort of canon history and film history with the Star Wars franchise. You can just make something from the tiniest little thing, because everything has so much more meaning when you have more than 9 films, what is it, 10, 11 films, and loads of TV shows, comic books, computer games, novels, like all of this stuff. You can then do the tiniest little thing in a film, and it will mean so much more. I think the Lord of the Rings is a great example. So the Amazon have basically bought the rights to a few hundred words at the start of Lord of the Rings that talks about the battle. So they haven't bought the rights to The Hobbit. They haven't bought the rights to Lord of the Rings. They've bought the rights to what happens just before Lord of the, or the decades before Lord of the Rings, which is very few words. And they've what was it, like $1 billion or something? They're going to spend $1 billion on it, including licensing and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, wow, that could be a risk if it wasn't Lord of the Rings. There's so much, you can do so many little things that will, again, you could almost add new information to a canon that already exists without touching it. You do it beforehand. There's all of these opportunities to write into something that's enormous. And I think it's the same with Star Wars. You can just, as we see, just with all the little touches and all the little things that they do in Rogue One. I mean, obviously the main sort of kind of canon fiddle is the redundancy built into the Death Star, but there's so many characters and things that we didn't know existed that fit perfectly. And at the end, when the Leia's ship drops out of the I don't know, it's not a Hammerhead, is it? The big ship that they're in just drops out the base, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, we're there. Okay, it's the start of A New Hope. Now here it is, and it's just the fact. You get the terrible deepfake of Leia, which at the time I thought was I was like, oh my god, look what they've done. And now after what we got in,
it doesn't look like her. It doesn't look like her at all. I don't see Carrie Fisher at all.
They're in a weird place.
It's very strange. Yeah.
It's like they tried to deepfake a caricature of Princess Leia.
Yeah.
But at the time I was blown away. And she's like, it gives us hope. It's like, oh, it's a new hope. That's what they're giving you. Brilliant. And now I look back and I'm like, oh god, after we've seen what they did with Mark Hamill in Boba Fett, like, some of that looked real. I was like, wow, this is stock. Oh no, it's not old stock. They've done a really good deep fake. I was
going to say, you mentioned the line, "It gives us hope." From a screenwriting point of view, how do you feel about the idea that it almost suggests, I know it's not saying that Luke is no longer the New Hope, but how do you feel about the idea that it could, in some people's minds, rewrite the meaning of what A New Hope refers to? Does it bother you? Does it?
I don't know, because
it override Luke, or how does it?
It was one line, and it was very quick, and then it was the credits. I know what they were doing. What you're saying, they're trying to feed into A New Hope. Whether they're trying to say she's the New Hope, or the plans of the New Hope, or the whatever's the New Hope. She didn't say, "Oh, it's the New Hope." She didn't. they didn't really hammer it home like they could have done. If they really wanted to do that, I think they'd have made more of a. I think it was, they would have made more of a connection. I think it was more just a clever
Yeah,
little
it's just being
hook.
clever.
They were
Yeah.
like, "Oh, we've got to get Leia in. What's she going to say? Oh, I've got it!" And everyone's like, "Yeah!" Like high fiving around in the writers' room. Yeah, we've nailed it.
I remember when it came out, and there was a lot of YouTube analysis and podcast discussions and stuff about it, and there was these kind of people criticizing the idea that are they trying to say that the New Hope that it's not Luke, that it's just this, we've got a second chance at victory here, or whatever it is, and whether that's what they were intending or not, they must know that they're opening themselves up to a bit of a. It is that kind of going a little too far with the rewrites sometimes. I totally agree with you. It's just a line. It's just a linking connection, a link to the two. But yeah, I feel like, I don't know. It's the low hanging fruit, isn't it? Oh, what's that? Hope. It's just it, yeah, it's a pun, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah, it is a pun, and
Yeah.
considering how successful it was and how much I love this film, it's amazing that it ends bang on a pun. But I mean, it made like $1 billion. It made $1 billion, and it was a spin-off film, and it was amazing. I mean, I think they spent 200 odd million on it. So Hollywood accounting, maybe it wasn't super profitable, but made $1 billion. And the fact that this, as far as I know, the Star Wars story banner's now retired. It's mind-boggling that they could jump away from something that was so successful, because I like Solo. I know a lot of people hate it. I liked it, but because I can see where the problems are from the mishandling of the production exist, and I can forgive them. I'm like, changing twin directors for, Ron Howard's like halfway through and like canning loads of stuff. I'm like, we've seen this happen before and it never works out. It never. I mean, looking at like Justice League and films like that where they've done it for various reasons, and Suicide Squad and things like that. It's just, it doesn't work well. And they spent, how much did they spend on Solo? Was that was 200 or 300 million, wasn't it?
It
It
was
was a lot.
insane. Yeah,
It was a
went way
lot of
over.
money,
Yeah.
and because I don't know, it feels like there's a kind of hubris in it somewhere, and they're like, oh well, it's because Star Wars story doesn't work, and it's like, no, it's because you fiddled with it so much while you were making it. Like, you can't pull a plug like that and expect it to sort of stay alive.
Do you think they would have done it as a TV show now, if Disney Plus was around and, like, you got Mandalorian and
Maybe,
stuff? Would you prefer it as a TV series?
possibly. I mean, I think the fact that the Kenobi film became a TV show, thank God, because I would have been so gutted if it didn't get McGregor again. But I just think there's so many more things that they can do other than just the TV shows, because they've got all these franchises they're bringing back, Andor. These new franchises they're going to introduce. So Andor and maybe Knights of the New Republic, if that ever happens. And we've seen Boba Fett, we've seen Mandalorian. There's a Lando thing happening, and at the moment the chatter is that it might be a direct sequel to Solo. They got both Billy D. Williams and Donald Glover, yeah, and you can see that it's going to be him. Just having those two in, he's going to be reflecting on his adventures of the past in a bar or something. Oh, there's one time we did a cool, and then you jump back and you see Donald Glover doing the cool stuff. But it might be, it could be a film. It's not really been. They're still keeping their cards close to their chest. So there is a chance that this Disney Plus model will give us films as well, and big ones. There's no reason they wouldn't do that. But I guess going on back on that a little bit, these are like 6-hour movies, 12-hour movies, depending what series it is, and it's exciting. It could have easily just been quantity over quality, but I think we're getting both here. So it was really the first one, this Star Wars story. I think we're still getting Star Wars stories with the TV shows, but they're not going to use that banner now because it's it's tainted. It's tainted to them. So we're still getting it, but just the fact that Solo could blow it out of the water so tremendously, it's just mind-boggling. Because this, I love Rogue One so much.
But Rogue One, Rogue One had its drama as well. So Gareth Edwards, I think Lucasfilm had to come in, and I think Tony Gilroy had to do some last minute rewrites. Tony Gilroy famously said, "I don't give a shit about Star Wars." I think that was an actual quote, and he said that's why. I think the idea was like that's why I'm here is because I don't give a shit about Star Wars. I'm not going to be precious about anything. I'm going to do what makes for a great movie, not what makes for great fan service or anything like that, which I thought was really telling of the issues that might have been plaguing that project. I'm sure the issues were minor and it's just a case of everybody having a different view or whatever, but I can't imagine Gareth Edwards would have given us a bad film either way. I always had the idea when I first heard the pitch, I always thought it was kind of like The Grey, the Liam Neeson film, where they're just being pursued through this rugged terrain by these wolves and being picked off one by one, kind of almost like a slasher film, but not a slasher film. And I don't know if I had made this up or if I'd read it somewhere or whatever, but I think in my mind before I saw any trailers, I had this idea that this was a movie about a group of people, group of agents being pursued by Vader. They're being hunted down one by Vader, which is ultimately what ends up happening. Not really, but it's kind of Vader's recruited in at the halfway point of the film to say, we need you to go and we need you to retrieve these plans. It's getting out of hand. And how did you feel? I mean, we'll get into the characters in more detail, but how did you feel about Vader? Because he was obviously the thing that kind of made people want to go see this film more than anything, I'm imagining. The allure of Vader and the Death Star and Tarkin and so on. How did you feel about Vader's use in this?
I liked most of it. I think I could tell the difference between New Hope Vader and this Vader. James Earl Jones is a bit older. He's got less projection in his voice. Still great. The suit's slightly different in this. It's got like a bigger neck, I find. I don't know if that was a lighting thing or if they've literally widen the mold of him to make him look big. He was always a big guy, but in what Hollywood films are like these days, it's got to be bigger and badder and all that kind of stuff without necessarily breaking canon. But I mean I love the scene where he gets on the ship towards the end and he's just throwing people around, he's cutting them in half. Like, I think I liked that. It didn't look like Anakin Skywalker fought. It looked very different, but he's got a different body now. He's a different person physically. He's built out of bits of machine and stuff. So I can see why he might change, but I thought it felt quite terrifying. You could feel the fear of the people on the ship when he turned up, when his lightsaber turns on, as the audience all went, "Ah!" I remember everyone just screaming when his lightsaber turns on. You could hear that, you knew he was there because you could hear his breathing, but it was the moment that lightsaber turns on, you see the guys' faces, they shit themselves and like, oh, we're all dead. Vader's here. They knew what he can do. He's got a reputation for just destroying anyone in front of him because he can. And then he just starts like working his way through them. I loved the corridor scene.
And it is one of the greatest scenes in all of Star Wars, I think. It is terrifying. It is appropriately epic in its music and the way it's handled. I mean, it's like the camera operator is running away from Vader as well. It is very much they're banging on the door and they're like, let us in, and it is just slaughter in every sense. And it is all in the movement. It is all in the way the actor in the suit handles himself. It's the kind of clenching of the fist. It's the kind of throwing his arm across. It's up. It's, and it's just, I'm making full use of the entire room.
It's methodical as well, how he just works his way through them. He knows he's going to kill them all, and he does, and he just methodically works his way through them. And the scene where he passes that little the little gold credit card through the gap, seconds before you don't immediately understand what's happening. There's just a red tip through the door, and you're like, oh, and then he just savages it, and it's just like, wow, okay, like you gotta run. The gold credit card thing, I know that's what she puts in R2D2, right? So they had to get it onto that at some point, but it's just really weird. The scene, okay, we're being boarded, and there's just the two dudes at like a computer wall with, like an old-fashioned spinning hard drive with a plug on it, putting it on something that's just a little bit smaller. So was that important? Like, I don't think they needed to do that. I know what they wanted to get the gold credit card in Leia's hand. That was what they wanted to do. But it just felt really weird. It's like, okay, we need to just do a quick data recovery. And it's like, no, just get the thing out of there.
Log out before you leave.
Yeah.
Don't close down Word. And it is very, but it's so tense though. And they get away by the skin of their teeth, and he's going to catch up to them straight away. Like Leia is like, hope. And then, like, you're going to get captured in a few minutes. In a few minutes, you're going to be captured again, and all of this is going to happen again as he comes. I think, okay, so the one issue I had with Vader was I loved his introduction in it. I love the idea that he's in the back to tank. They very, very cleverly show. They don't show too much of him. Like, you can see, is this Anakin? Like, is this the guy I remember? And it's just all in your head. If it looks like him, it's because it's in your head. It's so clever. And then I love the voice. I know exactly what you mean about James Earl Jones having he's an older man now, so his voice obviously is going to change slightly. But I thought it was better. I thought it was more intimidating. I thought this sounds like a guy who's been through hell over the last 20 years or whatever it's been. And yeah, and I love the way he talks about the way he talks to Krennic, and the way he's almost like his line manager, He
is though. That's his job.
It's really cool. The one thing I think I had a problem with is the fact that he's not the one killing the Rogue One members. So we've got, and I think there's a nice way to kind of segue into the characters as well here. We've got Donnie Yen's Chirrut character, who is a Force-sensitive, blind character, who he's the believer in the Force. He's what's his line in it? I'm one with the Force.
I am the Force, and the Force is with me.
Yeah, I'm the Force is with me. He's the guy who should have had a showdown with Vader.
That would have been amazing.
And I always thought he should have been a guy who landed a deadly blow on Vader. Just one blow. But it's enough to make Vader stagger to the point where when he fights Obi-Wan on the Death Star, he's a slower man.
Yeah.
And if I'm slow with you, Obi-Wan, it's because I actually got my ass kicked there a moment
Donnie
ago.
Yen stabbed me.
Because I think it would have been so great to show that, not everyone needs to be trained by Yoda in order to go up against Vader. Like, this guy, like Vader, I couldn't imagine Vader toying with him. I think Vader would just cut him down. But I think you could have had a moment where Vader's just cutting through everybody. And then Donnie Yen just emerges from a second just to quick whack on the back, of the helmet or whatever, and it's just enough to bring Vader to his knees for just a moment, and you could almost have a kind of a reaction from somebody that just suggests, "Holy crap!" Like, somebody actually, like, there's your hope, there's your new hope. Like,
the two Guardians in this are just. They're possibly my favourites in this, of apart from K2SO, of course, who's everyone's favourite. But they are incredible, and you get they're vagabonds now. The temple's gone, and they're taking all the kyber crystal off the planet. They're just hanging about. Like, these guys were guardians of the power of the Jedi's lightsaber. and they're force sensitive. Like I'd say they're both force sensitive just because of the way they fight and the the very nature of what their job was before the fall of the Empire. I don't know how they do it, but I'd love to see them again, like Andor, or would they be in the Obi-Wan? No, they're gone in that. Maybe the Ashoka show. There's a chance they could be in that, and
they need to. They need.
I'd
to
love
come
to
back
see them again. I'd love to see them again. I mean, there's going to be loads of people can see again in these new timelines. I think we discussed it on the Kenobi podcast we did, that it's this really, it's a hot pot for Star Wars. This section, it's like the primordial goop that Star Wars came out of. It's like, let's make a bunch of stories at that time period, and I think the Andor one's going to be really interesting.
If you send Obi-Wan to Jeddah in Kenobi, you can have him teaming up with Chirrut and Baze Malbus, I think is the other guy's name. You can have the two of them there side by side with, and maybe that's where he learns a little bit about the Force. Maybe that's where he gets his wisdom. He gets a few lessons about the Force from Obi-Wan. Maybe, I don't know. But you've got this. I just always felt it was the one missed opportunity with that movie, was to have, if any one of them, like, what is the point in having Vader? I understand why Vader's there. He's there so you can link then to A New Hope and have him track down Leia. But you didn't need him. It's not like A New Hope happens literally seconds after Rogue One ends. There is a gap. They end up flying to Tatooine. So there's no reason why you couldn't have had Vader down on the ground trying to stop the Rogue One team, and these really great, well-designed characters, rather than just wasting their ammunition on stormtroopers. Use them on Vader, and imagine the stuff you could be getting from Vader in terms of like deflecting stuff from his lightsaber or whatever. I don't know. Or imagine him leading a group of stormtroopers through this kind of through these waters and this jungle and stuff like that, and hunting these people down, like the way he does in Empire Strikes Back. When they finally land on Hoth, he walks through this base with these stormtroopers around him, and it's a very cool kind of moment. And I think there was none of that, and I feel at least one of the characters deserved to meet their end at the hands of Vader, because they're strong enough characters that they deserve that kind of big canon showdown.
Yeah. So I've thought about the battle ever since I saw it, like what influenced it and why it was as it was. And I think with the way that Lucas looks at the rebellion and things like that, he must have been heavily influenced by the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Sort of like, a huge power, crushing a small power that fight back regardless of their technological disadvantage, or their numbers, or whatever it is. I think that reflects in the battle on Scarif. So they've even gone for like a jungle environment, and it's soldiers, like nameless soldiers, most of them fighting other nameless soldiers. And I think they've gone for the same kind of approach, or the same. You can see the influence of that would have come into Rogue One. And I think that to have too many big players on the planet might have sort of diminished that a little bit.
Yeah, no, I can totally get that. I get that. Yeah. I guess the thing that, it's the smallest thing, but I wish Jyn Erso, great character, I'll talk a bit about her, I just wish she knew about Vader, or I wish she seen Vader, because she doesn't. I think Jyn is a more interesting character than most of the trilogy characters that you're getting. Like, I think she's a more interesting character than Rey. I like Rey as a character, but I think Jyn is a better character. I think she's almost, I would prefer her to some of the characters in the original trilogy even. I think she's just such an incredible character. I really I'll talk about the ending of that film in a bit, on kind of my feelings on that, but I do wish there was just that little bit more of an encounter between her and the bigger players, not just Krennic, you know.
Yeah. I mean, she's a great character. She's possibly, for me, one of the best female characters in the franchise, because they rely on femme fatales and, you know, so some potentially slightly damaging tropes towards female leads, and they don't do that in this. She's her sex doesn't matter. Like, she's strong and vulnerable and upset and angry in the same. It doesn't matter if she was a man or a woman. You know, a male actor could have played that role in almost the same way. Of course, there's a daddy-daughter thing going on, but that could be a son and father. You know, it doesn't feel like they've fallen down with where they have with some of the other characters. And I do think she's a better character than Rey. I like Rey, but I just think over those 3 films, she was written in 3 very different ways, and I think a lot of the background of her, a lot of the foundation of her character, was eroded by constant re-imaging of her, and, you know,
it was uncertainty of who she was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which can work really well, but when the writer's uncertain of who she is, if she's uncertain of who she is, brilliant, such a good conflict to work with. But when the writers are unsure who she is, then it will come through. It shows. Whereas this Jin, they were like, right, this is who she is. This is her conflict. This is what she wants. This is what she needs. Bam, and it was done. And she's great. She's really, really good.
I think this film has the best this grouping of hero characters between Jin, Andor, K2SO, Cheru, played by Donnie Yen, Baze Malbus, Saul Guerrera, Bodhi Rook, played by Riz Ahmed. Yeah, I think that is, without a doubt in my mind, the best combo of, I want 3 movies of them going on adventures. I love the Bad Batch, but I want this group of characters. And I do think the ending of this film, where everybody dies, was unnecessary. We needed them to. They succeed in getting the credit card, the Death Star plans on the golden credit card, and then off to Leia, and the rest is in Leia's hands now, and Luke, and so on. I understand why some characters died. You have to have some deaths in a battle, I guess, like this. But did you really need to write out every character?
I don't. I liked that they broke that rule of Star Wars. I liked that, which I think is why it feels like such a special entry into the franchise, because they killed everyone. They're all dead. All of them are dead, and it's like, wow. That I remember calling my brother. We watched it at the same time in 2 different places, and I remember calling him, going, "Oh my god, they killed them all!" It's like, that was amazing. I kind of didn't expect them all to die, but they did. And I think, you know, there are things that happen in Star Wars, like being shot at by an entire army of completely inept stormtroopers that can't hit anything. You know they're going to be all right, because the stormtroopers are rubbish. You know they're going to take out the AT-ATs. You know they're going to take out the walkers. You know that the TIE fighters aren't going to be able to hit Luke and all this kind of stuff. We understand that, because those are the rules that have been put in front of us. It's like the A-Team or something. They'll never get shot. They'll always be able to build a tank out of toilet rolls. Whatever they do, you knew where it's going. So for this to break that, I was like, oh my god, that was so good. Like, I feel really emotional, possibly more emotional about them dying than I would have done in a franchise that kills off its main characters.
I think Andor is a character who could have survived in this. I know he blackens his soul early on, and he's a kind of a tragic character. I had no problem with him getting killed in the movie, because it made sense. Now that they're doing a TV show about him, which is obviously a prequel, and it's been several years since. So Diego Luna is now aging into a kind of an older, you're going to have to kind of de-age him a little bit, maybe. I don't know, or just kind of high. It has been a good few years since Rogue One was filmed, and yeah, it just feels to me that now that Andor is coming out, I feel like I want this to be a sequel to Rogue One, not a prequel. I feel like I want the Andor show to be a response to everything he's learned along the way. He's got a new lease on life. He's moving in a new direction, and maybe he's at risk of falling back in his old ways, or maybe he has to go back on his old ways because that's what the new mission. There's a part of me that we'll talk about Andor at the end, but there's a part of me that feels that what Star Wars does typically, they either are uncertain about their characters, like we talked about with Rey and others, or even just the idea of Luke and Leia being brother and sister is very clumsily written in the original trilogy because they kiss each other. It's like either Lucas knew that and chose to have that moment, or he didn't know, in which case all that talk about him having this big grand plan in place was all BS. So I'm inclined to believe he didn't know, because otherwise it's just weird he wrote a scene where his brother and sister kiss each other. It's typical. They finally created a movie where, like, the Jyn Erso character in this, this is what, like, the brilliance of which the way she's written, that should have been what Rey was. The brilliance of these other characters, that's the team that we should have been assembling in the new trilogy to carry 3 movies. And they did that, and then they kill them off. And it's just typical. You finally nail it. You finally do the thing that no one can really criticize you for, and you just wrote them out. And you kind of feel like you wrote them out because Tony Gilroy doesn't give a shit about Star Wars, to quote him directly, So
I mean, I don't think they would have made it with a prequel to it in mind, as in the Andor TV show. But I think it's a brilliant. I think it's brilliant we can see them again. I almost like having this. Like I said about Bail Organa going home in Rogue One, it's like, oh, okay, that's it. That's the last thing that you'll do. There's a tragedy coming up, and I think to see before that, just it has so much emotional weight. There's a heft to it that that all of these things he's going to do. Going to be a massive hero, maybe uncelebrated, because we don't hear anything about him in the other films. It's just like, how many people died to get you these plans, kind of thing. It turns out it was a lot, but we don't know we don't know their names. So we almost see the build up to him being the nameless soldier that is a hero within this mission that saves the galaxy. I think with the Andor show, as you said, there was a thing in the New Hope that inspired Krennic, which was the empty seat. So I think there's 2 lines in Rogue One where they've gone, right, we're making that, and that's, I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old, and you're not the only one to have lost everyone. And it's like, okay, now it's going to be that backstory of how he became a rebel, what drove him to it. We know his sister's going to be in it from the casting announcements, and it's going to be tragic, and we're going to see. He's a charismatic guy, right? He seems like he could, without the stress and the weight of being a rebel fighter in an intergalactic war, he could have probably been quite a happy guy. He has, like, there's a nature to him where he seems like he could be kind, and he seems like he could be easy to get on with, but he's not. He's been broken, and I wonder if we're going to. Well, I'm almost certain we're going to get the arc of.
Yeah, we're definitely going to see how he
being completely devastated.
How he becomes the guy who can kill the man. There's somebody he kills an innocent person he kills at the beginning of the film, and he's kind of like, he's gone dark, and yeah, I definitely think so. We will do a proper analysis of what we're kind of expecting from this show once the trailer drops and we have a clearer idea. I'm just on the IMDb page right now, and I'm just like, yeah, just the poster. I'm really excited, and I'm looking at Stellan Skarsgård is in the show.
Yeah, more June crossovers with.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
It's so June/Star Wars at the moment. We get in
Fiona Shaw. Like, very interested to see what she does. And then Guinevere O'Reilly plays Mon Mothma.
Mon Mothma, yeah.
That is the most fortuitous casting for this person. I think she had been cast in a deleted scene in Revenge of the Sith. If you, I remember seeing the clip of her appearance in Revenge of the Sith. That's why she was cast in Rogue One, because she was in Revenge of the Sith.
Yes,
that most people have never seen. Getting to reprise that role now twice more, and it's possible she's played that role in she's in Star Wars Rebels as well.
Yeah,
Rogue One, Star Wars Go Rogue, whatever that is. I mean that's that was probably one day. That was probably like, it didn't even make the cut of the film, and here I've actually and she's actually like a real important character, is shown up in loads of different corners of the Star Wars movie, TV kind of a catalog, and we haven't seen the end of her, obviously. I wouldn't be surprised if she shows him in Kenobi as well or something. I don't know.
Well, she's she started the rebellion effectively. She's one of the key characters that were responsible for this fight back after the fall of the Republic.
Oh, the Republic.
And it's like she's going to be big in this because it's about him becoming part of the rebellion. So she's going to be the M to James Bond to this guy. He's going to, it's going to be one of the first spy. He's a spy. He's going to be a spy. It's going to be James Bondy. There's going to be other people in it that are like other double O's, like we get in Bond from time to time. I'm wondering about General Merrick, Antok Merrick, the X-wing pilot that bites it on Scarif. He was really archetypal, chiseled moustache, Bigglesy kind of guy. But I like watching. It's clear who he is, and I quite liked the fact that he was awesome in an X-wing. I kind of felt like he should have took a few more guys out when he crashed his X-wing. They sort of go, and you're like, oh, he's going to pilot it into something, and he just goes into a tree or something, and he's dead. But that aside, there are characters in there around Mon Mothma that also might come back in this show, and I think the fact it's going to be espionage is quite interesting. I think that'll bring an extra layer of something, as the Mandalorian did, which was kind of focused around a bounty show to begin with.
Is it weird that Mon Mothma is becoming her bit is that she sends spies off to find plans for Death Stars and they die? Like that's like Rogue One and Return of the Jedi are both her either sending people off to do that mission or reporting that everybody died on that mission.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting that there might be other missions that failed beforehand and we might get to see them. What is the mission what does it look like where everyone dies and they don't get the plans? Like that's going to be dark. Like, because that wouldn't have, I doubt very much that would have been their first run at it. Otherwise the Empire are really bad. The first time anyone tries to steal the plans, they get them. It's like they're gonna have other runs at this thing, definitely, because it's it's over a 10-year period, isn't it? From, is it 10 or 15 years that they get Mads Mikkelsen's character and make him work further because it's stalled. It goes on.
Yeah. It's about 10, 15 years of him. Yeah.
And obviously it would have worked. There would have been work on it before that. So this would have been going for decades, potentially, the development of this weapon. And, the rebels are going to be trying to get the thing. I think it gets a bit muddy because we see that they've already got the plans for it in
Attack of the Clones.
Revenge. Is it Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith? Attack of the, so that's like way before. So it's been going for a long time, and the rebellion didn't exist at that point. It came into itself after the fall of the Republic, and it wouldn't have started immediately, but they'll know that thing exists because the Jedi knew it existed. Or actually, no, they didn't, did they? It was the it was just, I can't remember the name of the species that are looking after it.
I can't remember either. I know what you mean.
Yeah,
they're
on that table, aren't they?
They're in Attack of the Clones. Yeah, they're the
Geonosians, is it? I think so.
I think so. Yeah.
It's where there's the big battle on that planet.
The Attack of the Clones.
Literally. Yeah, and that there's the scene there where they have it. I wonder how the rebels know it exists in the first place. Like, what's the story of that? How does it go from being a plan on that table to being under construction?
Is that the scene in in Rogue One, the scene at the beginning where Andor kills the guy, his informant or something? Like, is that where he learns about?
Oh, right, yeah. And he says it's a planet killer. He goes, it's a planet killer.
But somebody somewhere needs to learn that exists.
So he's part of or sort of part of the rebellion, I'm guessing, right? So he has to find out somehow. Or how did he get given that information? Like, what is the process of someone finding out what this thing is?
It was Rhys Ahmed's character, the defector. He defected, didn't he? And he went to Saw Gerrera, and then it kind of trickled in.
Wasn't it? He was bringing the plan. He was trying to get the plans out, right? Or was he the progenitor of the rebels knowing? Because they can retcon that as well. They could go, "Oh no, someone else told Riz Ahmed." Like, so,
I think we need to retcon our ignorance here on this story, because I think no, but I know exactly what you mean. I think Andor has the potential to really explore some of the stuff that, in the same way Rogue One taps into our love of New Hope, I think Andor can tap into the stuff we love about Rogue One in so many interesting ways.
Yes.
And I do want to see agents. I want to see double agents. I want to see I want to hear references to, like, I would love to see a news blast of Tarkin addressing people or something like that. I think I would love to see all that kind of stuff that just really sucks me back into that world that Rogue One is. So,
I mean, you can imagine the propaganda from the Empire, fighting the good fight and all that, it could be quite an interesting...
That's what I want this show to be. I want this show to be the Empire show. I want this to be, this is life in the Empire. This is life under Emperor Palpatine's rule. And we're going to explore what that life looks like. And Rebels does a great job of it. Bad Batch does a great job of it. You need your card in order to be able to go off world and all that kind of stuff. Your chain code, I think they call it. Like, and if you don't have a chain code, like you're breaking the law and all that. Like, it's very, they're figuring this stuff out. Filoni and Lucasfilm are figuring out what this Empire world actually looks like. They've been doing it with Rebels. The ideas that have been that are the sparks that exist within the movies have now been developed enough and understood enough, where I think the rules of this universe are much clearer. And I feel Andor is going to be that next kind of it's going to carry the torch. I think, even if it's prequel, I think it's going to carry the torch that Rogue One set.
I think so. Yeah, I think with the there's a lot of chatter about Tarkin coming back, and he's going to play a large part in it. And if he's there, we're going to get the trifecta, aren't we? We're going to get the Emperor and Vader as well. To what extent, we don't know. But the fact there's chatter about these characters being in it, we're going to get this. We're going to get that perspective of the Empire. We're going to have a perspective from the Empire, not just looking at them, like looking outward from them. And I think what a lot of really good TV dramas do, or the most successful TV dramas do, you end up sympathizing with the bad guys as well as the good guys, because you get that backstory and you understand about them. We're almost certainly going to have that if it's going to be a long-running show, because apparently it's already been signed up for series 2.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and they have. They haven't got a trailer out yet. Do you know what I mean? I think there are things they want to do with it. Yeah, so they have a long running vision for this. They've signed up season 2. We are almost certainly going to get a perspective from the Empire, because it's a 12 episode season. Apparently that could still change, but it's a longish one for conventional, it's a spin-off series as far as Star Wars is concerned. But I think we're going to get that look. We're going to get this extra part of what that a lot of it's sometimes missing, that we haven't always had that inside look from the Empire.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. That's what's needed. And I think in the same way that the Mandalorian, you watch the trailer for Mandalorian, you would never expect that we're going to get to meet Luke Skywalker. You would never expect that this is going to be a gateway to Luke Skywalker and his Jedi Temple. And how many episodes have they kind of explored Luke now in a show that really doesn't need to at all? You would never expect that the Jedi are going to be such an important role in this show. And I think that would be a really great kind of treat for Andor, as well as the idea of, you think this is going to be about the ground, the day-to-day life of being a rebel, but we're actually going to take you right up to the top corridors of power in Coruscant with the Emperor as well. And we're going to show you that contrast. Yeah, it would be. It actually, really would be. Any final? Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, with Kenobi, we're in this hot spot of where a lot of characters are still alive. So we could get Luke and Leia. We could get the Organas. We could get Kenobi, Ashoka, like all of the guys that we knew could be in Obi-Wan show. They could be in this one too. And there's a lot of opportunity to feed from one another, to feed into the greater story of what we're going to get from I guess the new stories we're filling in the Star Wars franchise.
You could do really well, actually. You could have him save Jyn Erso's life, kind of from afar, where it's and it's this kind of idea where you think he's got this hatred for her, or this kind of distrust for her, whatever, in Rogue One.
Yeah.
But you could recontextualize, I'm not saying it would be a good idea, but you could recontextualize that in so many ways, where it's like, actually you were involved in something, and and you would have died if it wasn't for me. So
I think this. They love doing that as well, don't they? Like there was the my friend doesn't like you. That guy's in Rogue One, isn't he?
Yeah.
They're like hanging around on Jeddah, like up to no good. And there was a cut. They deleted a scene of child Greedo in one of the prequels, I think it was, and it's like his mum shouting, "Come on, Greedo, you're always getting into trouble." And it's like, so they do love doing that. I can't see.
Put down that gun. You're going to get yourself killed.
Told you, do not never shoot first.
Any final thoughts, Brad?
I think we've probably covered everything. I mean, it's one of my favorites, and I think it will remain one of my favorites in the franchise. Like, it's so well done. It plays so much homage to the original trilogy, and it's surprising. It is a surprising entry when you watch it for the first time. Your fanboy lust is sort of, your heckles are up. You're like, oh my God, this is so cool. That's why they're there, and that's why this is happening. But then the characters that you really love, they kill them all. It's surprising, and I love that. I could still be surprised by Star Wars.
Yeah, I think it's got everything for me. It's the visuals, it's the spectacles, the hammerhead ships pushing one Star Destroyer into another. It's or whatever it is, it's just such good spectacle, and at its heart is just a really great story about a daughter reconciling with her father across space and time, and it's just holographic messages being left behind for her and all that kind of stuff. It's just brilliantly done. And deepfake Leia and deepfake Tarkin are a bit weird, but I think you're just totally sucked in anyway. It's like, yeah, okay, fine, it's Leia, I don't care, I'll just pretend it's Carrie Fisher, I think they should go and repolish them. I don't think anybody would have a problem with just doing an update of DV. You can just re-upload the film onto Disney Plus
Yeah,
now.
just render it out. It's
no
fine.
no one's buying the Blu-ray for Rogue One anymore. I mean, let's be honest. We're so who cares? Yeah, love it. Thanks very much, Brad. We'll have to pick up this discussion again when the Andor trailer comes out, if it ever does. Thanks very much for listening, everyone. We'll be back again tomorrow with another episode. If you haven't, do check out our website, thescriptdepartment.net. Subscribe to our podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our channel as well here on YouTube. And also hit us up on social media. You can find the links in the description. Thanks, Brad.